The first time I saw Ethan Caldwell, he was leaning against the oak tree outside Carver Hall, smirking like he owned the world. His sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes cut through the crowd. And I, a freshman with a sketchbook and too many dreams, felt my stomach lurch when his gaze landed on me. By the end of that week, I'd learned his smirk wasn't charm, it was a warning. I was Lucas Harper, an art major at Westbridge University, a small liberal arts school in upstate New York. My world was lines and colors, charcoal smudges on my fingers, and quiet nights in my dorm sketching faces I'd never dare approach. Ethan, a junior and star of the lacrosse team, was everything I wasn't: bold, loud, untouchable. He moved through campus like a storm, leaving whispers and broken hearts in his wake. And for reasons I couldn't fathom, he chose me as his target. It started small snide comment about my hippie clothes in the cafeteria, a shove in the hallway that sent my sketchbook skidding across the floor. But Ethan had a knack for finding my weaknesses. He'd mock my sketches, calling them sad little doodles, or trip me in front of his teammates, their laughter burning my ears. I told myself I could handle it. I'd survived high school in a small Ohio town where being openly gay made me a walking target. But Ethan was different. His cruelty felt personal, like he saw something in me he needed to crush. One October evening, I was alone in the art studio, working on a portrait for my midterm. The room smelled of turpentine and possibility, my sanctuary from the chaos of campus life. I was lost in the curve of a cheekbone when the door slammed open. Ethan stood there, his lacrosse stick slung over his shoulder, his eyes glinting with that familiar malice. "Still playing with your crayons, Harper?" he sneered, striding toward my easel. "Leave me alone." "Ethan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My heart pounded as he loomed closer, his shadow swallowing the light. He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "You think you're special, don't you? Hiding behind your little drawings like they mean something." He grabbed my sketchbook and flipped through it, his fingers smudging the pages. I lunged to snatch it back, but he held it high, laughing. "Give it back," I shouted, my voice cracking. For a moment, his smirk faltered, and something flickered in his eyes, something I couldn't name. Then he tossed the sketchbook onto the table and walked out, leaving me shaking with rage and humiliation. That night, I lay awake, replaying every jab, every laugh. Why me? I wasn't loud or flashy. I kept to myself, blending into the background. Yet Ethan saw me, and not in the way I'd secretly hoped someone like him might. I hated how his presence lingered, how his taunts echoed in my head. Worse, I hated the part of me that noticed his broad shoulders, the way his voice softened when he wasn't mocking me. It was a betrayal of my own heart. The next morning, I found my sketchbook outside my dorm, pages crumpled but intact. A note was tucked inside, scrawled in sharp, angry handwriting, "Don't let me break you." I stared at it, my chest tight. Was this an apology? A threat? I didn't know, but it was the first crack in the wall Ethan had built between us. Weeks passed, and the bullying didn't stop, but it changed. Ethan's jabs grew quieter, less public. He'd catch my eye across the quad and hold it a second too long, or brush past me in the library, his fingers grazing my arm. I told myself I was imagining it. That trauma was twisting my perception. But then came the night that changed everything. It was late November, and Westbridge was hosting its annual art showcase. My professor had chosen one of my paintings, a vibrant, chaotic piece about identity for the main exhibit. I was nervous, my palms sweaty as I stood by my work, watching strangers murmur and nod. Then I saw him. Ethan, in a crisp button-down, stood at the edge of the crowd, staring at my painting. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were locked on the canvas, on the swirling colors that bared my soul. I braced myself for a snide remark, but he said nothing. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice low. "This is yours." I nodded, my throat dry. He tilted his head, studying the painting like it held a secret. "It's real," he said finally, almost to himself. Then he walked away, leaving me stunned. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, mingling with the memory of his gaze. For the first time, I wondered if there was more to him than cruelty. I wondered if he was fighting something I couldn't see. And I wondered why. Despite everything, I wanted to know. The art showcase left me rattled. Ethan's quiet words replaying like a song I couldn't shake. I tried to focus on my classes, my sketches, the crisp December air that promised winter break. But he was everywhere. Not just in his taunts, which had softened into pointed glances and half-smirks, but in the way my heart raced when I saw him. I hated myself for it. How could I feel anything but anger for someone who'd made my life hell? Westbridge's campus buzzed with holiday preparations, string lights twinkling across the quad. I was in the library, hunched over a history paper, when Ethan slid into the chair across from me. No prelude, no warning, just him. His lacrosse jacket slung over the back of the seat, his eyes searching mine. "You're always hiding in here," he said, his tone more curious than cruel. I gripped my pencil, my guard up. "Maybe I like it here. It's quiet." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and I caught the faint scent of cedar and sweat. "You're not as invisible as you think, Harper." His voice was low, almost intimate, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to snap back, to tell him to leave, but my words caught in my throat. He didn't say anything else, just sat there, flipping through a textbook he clearly wasn't reading. For 20 minutes, we existed in this strange silence, the library's hum fading into the background. When he finally left, he dropped a folded piece of paper on my book. Inside was a sketch, a rough, clumsy drawing of a figure that looked suspiciously like me, sitting at a desk, lost in thought. It wasn't good, but it was deliberate. I stared at it, my chest tight with questions I wasn't ready to ask. The next day, I saw him at the campus coffee shop, surrounded by his teammates. I braced for the usual jeer, but he just nodded, his eyes holding mine for a beat too long. His friends noticed, their laughter faltering, and I hurried out, my coffee burning my hand. What was he doing? Was this a new game? A subtler way to mess with me? I couldn't trust it, but I couldn't ignore it either. Winter break loomed, and I was desperate for a reprieve from Ethan's orbit. But fate had other plans. The night before I was set to leave for Ohio, I got roped into helping with the campus holiday fair. My art professor needed volunteers to set up booths, and I couldn't say no. The gym was a chaos of tinsel and chatter, students hauling tables and stringing garlands. I was wrestling with a banner when Ethan appeared, carrying a box of decorations. "Need a hand, Harper?" he asked, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I froze, suspicious, but nodded. We worked in silence, hanging lights and arranging displays. His arm brushed mine as we reached for the same strand of garland, and I flinched, expecting a jab. Instead, he smiled a real smile, not the smirk I knew so well. "You're good at this," he said, gesturing to the booth. "Making things beautiful." I didn't know how to respond. My cheeks burned, and I mumbled something about needing tape. Later, as we packed up, he lingered, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "I'm not good at this," he said suddenly, his voice raw, at saying sorry for everything. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Before I could speak, he turned and left, disappearing into the snowy night. I went home for break, but Ethan followed me in my thoughts. His apology, his sketch, his smile, they didn't erase the pain, but they cracked something open. I spent those weeks sketching him, trying to capture the contradiction of his sharp edges and sudden softness. When I returned to campus, I was determined to confront him, to demand answers. But Westbridge had other plans. The first day back, I found Ethan waiting outside my art history class. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something nervous, almost vulnerable. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my stomach twisting. He led me to a quiet corner of the quad, where the snow still clung to the trees. "I'm not who you think I am," he said, his eyes locked on the ground. "And I'm scared you'll hate me when you know." Ethan's words hung in the air, heavy with a truth I wasn't ready to unravel. The quad was silent, the snow muffling the world, but my pulse roared in my ears. I wanted to demand answers, to shake him until he explained why he tormented me. But his vulnerability stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He rubbed the back of his neck, his breath clouding in the January chill. "I've been a jerk, Lucas. Worse than that. I saw you, this quiet guy with all this light in you, and I didn't know how to handle it." He looked up, his blue eyes raw. "I was jealous and scared of what you made me feel." My heart stuttered. "Feel?" I echoed, my mind racing. Ethan, the untouchable lacrosse star, was admitting to feelings. For me, it felt like a trap, but his expression open, almost pleading, kept me rooted. "You made my life hell," I said, my voice cracking. "You think saying sorry fixes that?" "No," he said quickly. "It doesn't. But I'm trying to be honest. I'm not out. Nobody knows. My dad, my team, he'd lose it. I took it out on you because you were so, open, fearless. I hated you for it, but I couldn't stay away." I stared at him, the world tilting. Ethan Caldwell, my bully, was gay, and he'd targeted me because I represented everything he couldn't face. Anger and pity warred in my chest. But beneath it, something else stirred hope, dangerous and unbidden. "Why tell me now?" I asked. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Because I'm tired of hiding. And because I see you. Lucas. Really see you." His hand twitched, like he wanted to reach out. But he didn't. Instead, he turned and walked away, leaving me in the snow with a heart full of chaos. The next few weeks were a blur of tension and stolen glances. Ethan didn't taunt me anymore, but he was always there, sitting a few rows behind me in class, lingering at the edge of my vision in the cafeteria. I caught myself watching him too, noticing the way his laugh softened when he talked to his little sister on the phone, or how his hands fidgeted when he thought no one was looking. I hated how much I noticed. One night, I was in the art studio, working late on a new Paisea stormy abstract that mirrored my confusion. The door creaked, and Ethan stepped in, holding 2 coffees. "Peace offering," he said, setting one on my table. I didn't know what to say, so I took it, the warmth seeping into my hands. We sat in silence, me painting, him watching. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. "You're good," he said finally, nodding at my canvas. "I mean it. You make people feel things." I looked at him, searching for the catch, but his eyes were steady. "I'm trying to be better, Lucas," he added, softer. "I don't expect you to forgive me. Just let me try." I didn't respond, but I didn't kick him out either. He started showing up Moretto the studio, to the coffee shop, to the edges of my life. He'd bring snacks, or just sit quietly while I worked. Slowly, the walls I'd built began to crack. I saw glimpses of the real Ethan, the guy who loved classic rock, who worried about his grades, who carried guilt like a second skin. But I wasn't ready to trust him. Not yet. By February, we'd settled into a fragile truce. We weren't friends, but we weren't enemies either. Then came Valentine's Day, when Westbridge held its annual charity auction. I'd donated a painting, and to my shock, Ethan bid on Ida Reckless, public gesture that drew whispers from the crowd. When he won, he met my eyes across the room, a shy smile breaking through. Later, he found me outside, holding the canvas. "This belongs in a gallery," he said, "but I want it in my room, to remind me." My heart raced, torn between fear and something warmer. "Remind you of what?" I asked. "Of you," he said simply. Ethan's words hit me like a tidal wave, pulling me under. He stood there, holding my painting, his eyes searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give. The night air was sharp, the campus quiet except for the distant hum of the auction winding down. I wanted to run, to hide from the weight of his confession, but my feet stayed planted. "Remind you of me," I repeated, my voice tight. Ethan, you can't just say things like that. Not after everything. My hands shook, and I shoved them into my pockets, trying to steady myself. His face fell, but he didn't back down. I know, he said, stepping closer. I don't deserve your trust, but I'm trying. Lucas, I'm trying to be someone you don't have to hate. His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw the weight he carried, the fear, the shame, the longing. It mirrored my own, and that scared me more than his bullying ever had. I turned away, staring at the stars to avoid his gaze. I need time, I said finally. I can't just forget. He nodded, his shoulders slumping, and handed me the painting. Keep it, he said. It's yours. Always was. Then he walked away, his silhouette fading into the night. The next few weeks were torture. Ethan kept his distance, but his presence lingered in every corner of campus. I saw him in the library, his head bent over a book, or on the lacrosse field, his focus fierce, but his eyes searching the bleachers where I sometimes sat. Sketching. I told myself I was there for the movement, the lines of the game, but I was lying. I was watching him. My friends noticed the shift. Mia, my roommate, cornered me one night in our dorm. What's going on with you and Caldwell? She asked, her eyes narrowing. You're different when he's around. Softer. I denied it, but she wasn't buying it. Be careful, Lucas, she said. He hurt you. Don't let him do it again. Her words stuck, but so did Ethan's. I started noticing the small things he did, leaving a coffee on my desk in the studio, slipping a playlist of songs he thought I'd like into my bag. Each gesture chipped away at my defenses, but I couldn't shake the fear that this was all a cruel trick. I'd been burned before, not just by Ethan, but by a world that didn't always make space for people like me. Then came the Spring Art Festival, a campus-wide event where I'd been chosen to lead a mural project. It was my chance to shine, to prove I was more than the quiet kid who got pushed around. The mural was massive, a celebration of identity and resilience, painted on the side of the student center. I poured everything into it, my pain, my hope, my truth. On the final day, as I added the last strokes, Ethan showed up. He didn't say anything, just picked up a brush and started helping. The other volunteers exchanged glances, but I nodded, letting him stay. We worked side by side, our brushes moving in sync, the mural coming alive under our hands. For the first time, I felt like we were building something together, not tearing each other apart. When we finished, the crowd applauded, and I felt a rush of pride. Ethan stood back, his eyes on the mural, then on me. You're incredible, he said, so quiet only I could hear. My heart lurched, and I wanted to believe him, but doubt still gnawed at me. That night, he texted me, meet me at the oak tree. Please. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Mia's warning echoed, but so did the memory of his hands on the paintbrush, steady and sure. I grabbed my jacket and went. He was waiting, his face lit by moonlight, his eyes nervous but determined. I'm done hiding, he said before I could speak. I'm coming out. To my team, my family. I want to be honest. Lucas. For you. For me. The oak tree loomed above us, its branches swaying in the spring breeze. Ethan's words hung between us, bold and terrifying. You're coming out? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My mind raced. Ethan, the guy who'd built his life on being untouchable, was ready to risk it all. For me. He nodded, his jaw tight. I've been running from this forever. My dad old school. Thinks being gay is a choice. A sin. My team, they're not exactly progressive. But I can't keep pretending. Not when he stopped, his eyes searching mine. Not when I feel this way about you. My breath caught. The world felt too small, too big, all at once. Ethan, you can't just say that. You hurt me. For months. How do I know this isn't another game? My voice shook, torn between wanting to believe him and the scars he'd left. I know, he said, stepping closer. I was scared. Lucas, scared of what I felt, of what it meant. I took it out on you, and I'll regret that forever. But I'm here now, trying to make it right. His hand reached for mine, then stopped, hovering in the air like he was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. We stood there, the silence thick with unspoken questions. I wanted to hate him, to hold on to the anger that had kept me safe. But the way he looked at Mara, unguarded, made it impossible. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. But I want to figure it out. With you. His voice was soft, but it carried a weight that anchored me. For the first time, I saw not the bully, but the man beneath, struggling to be free. The next few days were a whirlwind. Ethan was true to his word. He told his lacrosse team first, during a late-night meeting in the locker room. I wasn't there, but he texted me after. His words shaky, they didn't take it well. But I'm okay. My heart ached for him, but also swelled with pride. He was doing this, facing the fire, and I couldn't help but admire his courage. On campus, whispers followed him. Some teammates avoided him. Others slung slurs when they thought no one was listening. But Ethan held his head high, and I started to see the strength I'd missed before. He wasn't just the cocky jock. He was someone fighting for his truth, just like I had. We started spending more time together, cautiously at first. Coffee runs turned into long walks, then late-night talks in the art studio. He'd watch me paint, asking questions about my process, my dreams. I learned about how he wanted to coach kids someday, how he loved the ocean but had never learned to swim. The more we talked, the more I saw the Ethan I'd glimpsed in fleeting moments, kind, curious, human. One night, we ended up at the lake on the edge of campus, the water reflecting a crescent moon. We sat on the dock, our shoulders brushing, the air electric with possibility. I never thought I'd be here, he said, his voice low. With you. Like this. I looked at him, his profile sharp against the night sky, and felt something shift inside me. I didn't either, I admitted. But I'm glad you are. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and his eyes lit up, a smile breaking through. He leaned closer, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me. But he didn't, just rested his forehead against mine, his breath warm on my skin. It wasn't perfect. Doubt still lingered, and the world wasn't kind to people like us. But in that moment, under the stars, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Hope is a fragile thing, easily bruised. As spring bloomed across Westbridge, Ethan and I tiptoed into something neither of us could name. We weren't dating. Not exactly. But we were something, two people orbiting each other, drawn together by gravity we couldn't resist. Yet the world around us wasn't as forgiving. Ethan's coming out rippled through campus. His teammates' cold shoulders turned into outright hostility. I saw it in the way they ignored him at practice, or the graffiti scrawled on his locker words, "I won't repeat." He brushed it off, but I saw the toll it took. The way his shoulders tensed when he thought no one was watching. I wanted to protect him, but I was still protecting myself, still wary of letting him too close. One afternoon, we were in the art studio, me sketching, him sprawled on a stool, flipping through my old sketchbook. "You drew me," he said, pausing on a page. It was a rough portrait from months ago, when his smirk still cut like a knife. Even then, his voice was soft, almost disbelieving. I blushed, snatching the book away. "You were noticeable," I muttered. He laughed, a real laugh, and for a moment, the tension melted. But then the door burst open, and two of his teammates stormed in. "Caldwell, you bailing on practice for this?" One sneered, eyeing me like I was dirt. Ethan stood, his jaw tight. "Back off, Ryan," he said, his voice low but firm. Ryan stepped closer, his face twisted. "You're a disgrace, man. Throwing away everything for him." The word dripped with venom, and I flinched. Ethan didn't. He squared his shoulders, stepping between me and Ryan. "Yeah," he said, "for him. And for me." Ryan spat on the floor and left, his friend trailing behind. The silence was heavy, and I saw the tremor in Ethan's hands. "You okay?" I asked, my voice small. He nodded, but his eyes were distant. "I lost them," he said finally. "My team. My friends. But I'd do it again." I reached for his hand, tentative, and he gripped it like a lifeline. That was the moment I knew I was falling for him. Despite everything, the bully who'd broken me was now the man who made my heart race. And I didn't know how to reconcile the two. We started spending every spare moment together. Late nights in the studio, walks by the lake, quiet moments in his dorm when his roommate was out. He told me about his dad's angry phone calls, his fear of losing his family. I told him about my own, how my mom had cried when I came out. Not from shame, but from fear for me. We were both scarred. But together, those scars felt less heavy. One night, as we lay on a blanket under the stars, he turned to me, his eyes bright. "I want to be with you, Lucas. For real. No more hiding." My heart stopped, then surged. I wanted it too, but fear clung to me. What if it's too hard? I asked. What if we're not ready? He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "We'll figure it out. Together." And then he kissed me, soft and certain, his lips warm against mine. It wasn't fireworks or magic, it was better. It was real, raw, and ours. But reality crashed in the next day. Ethan's dad showed up on campus, his face like thunder. I watched from a distance as they argued in the parking lot, Ethan's voice rising, then breaking. When he found me later, his eyes were red. "He's done with me," he said, his voice hollow. Said I'm no son of his. I pulled him close, my own fears forgotten. "You're enough," I whispered. "You're more than enough." Ethan's pain lingered, a shadow that followed us into the final weeks of the semester. His dad's rejection cut deep, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he leaned into Jacinto with a fierceness that both scared and thrilled me. We were no longer just orbiting. We were colliding, building something real amid the wreckage of our pasts. Campus wasn't kind. The graffiti on Ethan's locker didn't stop, and some professors gave him cold looks, as if his truth tainted his work. But he kept going, showing up to classes, to practice, to me. I saw the effort it took, the way he squared his shoulders against the world's judgment. And I saw the way he looked at me, like I was his anchor, his reason to keep fighting. We spent late nights in my dorm, talking about everything and nothing, our fears, our dreams, the future we couldn't quite see. One night, as rain tapped the window, he traced the lines of my latest sketch, a portrait of us under the oak tree. "You make me want to be better," he said, his voice soft. "I don't deserve you, Lucas, but I'm trying to." I kissed him then, not holding back. It was messy and perfect, our hands tangled, our breaths uneven. For the first time, I let myself believe in us, in the possibility of a future where we weren't defined by pain. But doubt still whispered, what if the world broke us? What if love wasn't enough? The semester's end brought the senior art showcase, my biggest project yet. I'd poured months into a series of paintings about transformation, each one a piece of my journey with Ethan. The night of the show, the gallery was packed, the air humming with anticipation. Ethan was there, in a suit that made my heart skip, his eyes never leaving me as I explained my work to the crowd. When I unveiled the final piece, a vibrant, swirling depiction of two figures embracing under a stormy sky, the room went quiet. I felt exposed, my heart laid bare on the canvas. Then Ethan stepped forward, his voice clear. "This is us," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is what Lucas taught me to love, to be brave, to be me." The crowd murmured, some with awe, others with judgment. But I didn't care. I crossed the room and kissed him, right there in front of everyone, my hands framing his face. The world didn't end. Some clapped, some turned away, but we stood together, unapologetic. After the show, we walked to the lake, our hands linked. The stars were bright, the air warm with the promise of summer. "I'm scared," I admitted. my voice small. Of what comes next. Your dad. My family. The world, it's not going to be easy. I know, he said, pulling me close. But I want to wake up next to you. Lucas. Every day. Through the hard stuff. The good stuff. All of it. His words settled in my chest. Warm and certain. I thought of the boy who'd tormented me. The man who'd fought to change. And the future we could build. Okay, I said, my voice steady. Let's do it. Together. We kissed again. The lake lapping at the shore. The world stretching out before us. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be ours. As we lay on the dock, his head on my chest, I realized something. Love doesn't erase the past, but it can rewrite the future. Ethan had been my bully, my pain, my fear. Now he was my partner, my heart, my home. And as the stars blinked above us, I knew I'd wake up next to him, no matter what came next.